Hi, I'm Jack Canfield. You may know me as the co-author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, the book The Success Principles, featured teacher in the movie The Secret. I'm sitting here with Dr. Kramer, who is doing some amazing work, and we're going to talk about that work. So welcome. And
Thank you, Jack.
so let's talk about what is it exactly you do.
Well, right now I work with women in stepping into the next stage of their life. So whether it is post-divorce, whether it is after the loss of a loved one, after even overcoming childhood trauma.
Interesting. Do you ever work with women who have said, I've had it with the corporate world, I want to do something different as well?
Yes, because that actually was me.
That was you?
That was me back in 2009. So I find too that I attract a lot of those clients who have had those experiences, even stepping out of the corporate world, when they realize that the confines of the corporate world are not allowing them to step in and really live who they are and what they want.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a passion.
And when you're working with people, do you work individually as a coach? Do you do seminars? Do you have courses? Do you speak? What do you do?
Yes, I would say there's really two things that I do. One is as an author and a speaker. So there's a platform that I have and really going in and talking to groups about healthy grief. That's my focus around healthy grief.
Oh, really?
And allowing it so it doesn't settle in the body. So that's what I do both from a book that I have as well as going in and talking with individuals about really what's grief. It's more than just death and dying. There's a lot of grief and loss, even to losing your own hopes and dreams, which you talked about corporate world. That bridges across that. If I'm losing who I am in the corporate setting, is how then do they go about and find what they have lost? The second thing that I do is working one-on-one with clients to be able to help them easily and effortlessly get rid of what it is that's standing in the way of them living their best life and empowering and equipping them with quick and easy process to do so.
Yeah, quick question about grief.
Yes.
Do you find that any transition, like you leaving the corporate world, getting divorced, empty nesting, there's a grief aspect to that transition?
Yes. In fact, I even wrote a book related to it, and Will is talking about that, is typically when we think about grief, it's death and dying. But when you've gone through a divorce, grief. When you've gone through a estrangement in a family or a separation with friends, grief. When you've gone through, and there's also what they call disenfranchised grief. So women who have lost a child anywhere along the lines before birth or soon after is one. So even a miscarriage along the way.
Sure.
So there is also health issues. So whether it is I'm getting older and I can't get around and operate the way I used to, or having major health issues that is preventing them from being able to get up and operate the way they've done before, or as I mentioned, even a loss of hope and dreams.
I was going to say giving up a dream, like saying, okay, this is not going to happen, or I don't know if I can do this, and the grief of that occurs as well.
Yeah, and the way I describe it is grief is when you have a deep sorrow over an event or even a realization of something that has left you to when what once was is no longer. So when what once was is no longer. I was a wife and now I'm going through a divorce. For me, I worked my way up the corporate world and I had the program manager job. I made it up that way. And then when I made a choice to step down from that role and actually transition out to start my own business, I was in this struggle with, well, then who am I? And even moving back home and I've been in the corporate world since I stepped out of my undergrad. And then all of a sudden I was a mom to 5 kids at home, 17-year spread, to starting my own business. And I was trying to figure out, who am I? So I lost my identity in the process of that and struggling to figure that out. So what once was, I had a title, I had a position, I worked for a prestigious company, was no longer.
Well, I think retirement, being fired, layoffs, all those kind of things because I'm no longer that being with that title, doing that job, who am I? Yeah, interesting. So I'm hearing kind of two aspects or steps. There's a grief of letting go of what was, but you're also talking about now creating the life that you want to have. Talk about that a little bit.
Yes. In fact, there is a framework that I talk about. So it's the end of what once was is a start. So think about chapters in a book. You're closing the chapter of something that was, whether it is a position, whether you talk about retirement. I have a client who recently went through retirement. So the closing of the job, the closing of the relationship, the close of that hope and dream I thought I had. Then there is that transition period to then stepping into the new normal or that new chapter. And there's a 5-stage process that I talk about. And actually, it's the Healthy Grief Framework, which is GRIEF. Okay, make it simple.
Yeah.
GRIEF, grief.
Which stands for?
G is gather. So that's when you're the logical, like what's the information that I need or that I know? R is relate. So that's the heart. So we go from the head, gather the information, to R, relate, which is the heart. Like, how do I feel about what's going on? And for many individuals who are a lot about what's up in their head, it's getting them also to connect with the heart. And those who lead from the heart, G is allowing them to also focus on the head. So it's connecting those two. I as involve. So what action steps do I need to take to move forward? And depending upon where they are as I'm working with clients, it could be something like, okay, if they find that after a grief, it may be getting out of bed before noon. It may be taking a shower, getting dressed. It's starting off with the simple steps and then starting to move into what are the actual action steps that I need to take to move me from where I am right now to where I want to go, whether it's job, relationship, whatever that grief is. E, and which, by the way, the I involve is the feet. So we've gone from the head to the heart to the feet, GRI. E is ease. Ease in really I have that hands. So thinking about what kind of support do you need to be able to move through this, whether it is formal or informal support. And also I've worked with clients who are like, I don't even know what I need. Or people ask me, what do you need? And I have no idea because I'm sitting in a grief fog. So I also talk about some ways from a supporter end. What can you do to help people in that way? So it's both for the griever and the supporter. But ease is hands. How do you support somebody? And F is focus. So thinking about what am I focusing on? That's the vision. What do I want to focus on? And in the beginning stages, people may not know. And continuing to ask that question in a gentle way, which leads them into what's the new normal? For example, individuals who have gone through a divorce, a new normal might be, I'm going into the holidays. What do the holidays look like? Where in the past, what once was is the whole family was together, we had all the kids together, and now I'm in the middle of a divorce where every other year I had the kids on, this. So it's thinking about and having to plan for what that new normal might look like versus the holidays just hitting them and the grief just washes over them.
Yeah, very good. I like that. That's wonderful. So you're obviously really, really passionate about this. I can tell that. Why are you so passionate about it?
Well, when I think about that question, why I'm very passionate about it, it really goes back to an experience that I had in 2012. And back then I had one of those days, which is not my norm, by the way, Jack, on this as I share it. I had one of those days where I just lost it. I was screaming and yelling at my family members. I was slamming doors. I was slamming and hanging up phones, which again is not my norm. And during that process, I'll tell you why here in just a bit, but in the process of it, my loving husband gently is like, okay, honey, we need to, seek some support for this. So I thought, okay, so I will go and I will seek out a therapist. Now, mind you, I've sought out therapists before for various different things in the past, and that was very helpful. At this point in time, I think I had a newly minted therapist who looked at me, looked at my credentials, which, by the way, 2 masters, PhD, looked at me, knew I was a coach, all that. And she said, I think you have situational anxiety, right? Like, don't you have situational anxiety? And I'm like, okay, like what is that? And then so she checked the box and then sent me on to group anxiety that they had. that didn't help me. So I walked out being labeled and sent to some group therapy. It did not help. And so I thought, well, I'm in my early 40s. Maybe it's onset menopause. So I went to my doctor and I explained to my doctor what led up to that day where I had my little meltdown. And within 2 minutes, she wanted to pump me full of drugs. Yep, I think you need this and that. I'm like, oh no, I'm the type who barely takes vitamins and over-the-counter meds. I'm like, I know you're not going to pump me full of drugs. So after another meltdown, my husband's like, honey, there's that 7-day destination spa, that you've been looking at for a while. Maybe this is the perfect time for you to go there. So I did. I went to this 7-day destination spa, loved it. Got away from all the chaos that was going on, healthy food, exercise, rest. They had massages and facials, all the relaxation, 7 days. Within 2 hours of being home, I was bickering with my loving husband. And it wasn't about him, it was all about me. And what led to that was on that day where I had my breakdown, my father had passed away a month prior to that. On the day of my breakdown, which was a month at that point in time, I had to put my 18-year-old beloved cat to sleep. And I had started to go through the grief process, which, by the way, 2 months after that, my ex-husband passed away. And I went through the process again, even though we were estranged, ex-husband, there's still that grief that happens with somebody and coming to terms with that. So all of that was culminating because I hadn't gone through the grief process. So why am I so passionate? It starts back with that major experience and realizing I don't want other people to experience the type of thing and the aftermath. It wasn't just me. I exploded all over my family. My brothers, my mom, my kids witnessed it, my husband, all of this. So recognizing that there's an easier and healthy way to go through that process, and also how grief settles in the body, which is where now, especially in the last 3 years, I've been more intent on looking at that aspect. My son ended up with a lot of health issues after his father passed away when he was 9. Finally went through the process that I went through when he was 17, which, by the way, it was irritable bowel syndrome, which, okay, stomach issues, it means it's just not Crohn's or something else. But I saw this kid starting at the age of 9 up until he was 17. So for 8 years, he was a star water polo player. He was highly academic, very quick. Academically, he was 6 months away from being Boy Scout Eagle. He was very well, had a good social network, and all of that just spiraled downhill. And even more so when his stepdad left. So here is a kid who, especially going into high school, was just struggling. I had to pull him out of high school, do homeschool, and just watch his life. It's so hard as a mother to watch your own child's life go downhill. And I was doing everything I thought I was supposed to do, from a diet to all the medical to getting these herbal teas that helped him, which was horrible. He hated them. Just everything. And then we walked in and one of the doctors said, well, you've tried everything else. I really think at this point in time, we need to put him on a medication that actually is a heart medication. I'm like, oh no, I already told you about medicine. I'm like, you are not putting my son on some heart medication when we're talking about the stomach here. And I got into the field of work, neuro-linguistics programming specifically.
Sure, NLP.
NLP, to understand, even after more than 30 years of being in the field of executive coaching, now I was understanding what's the difference between conscious coaching and really getting to the subconscious mind.
Right.
And making that mind-body connection. So I lovingly begged my mentors. I said, will you please work with my son? Because there's no way that I could work with my son, just that connection there. And 2 days, turned around. He was in the middle of his junior year of high school, already a year and a half behind in school. And he came in, he wasn't even all the way in through the door. And he goes, Mom, I want to go back to, and named his traditional high school. I want to go back to high school. And I'm like, the mother, right? Like, what if you get sick again? Like, this is a critical time. There's a lot of stress. You're already a year and a half behind in credits. Like, what's going to happen? Even though I know this body of work, I was concerned as a mother. And he goes, no, Mom, I want to do it. 2 days with them. So he did it. Within 3 days, I got him back into his high school. He was a year and a half behind. This is his middle year of his junior year of high school. He finished all of his high school credits, made it up. He finished his senior year's worth of work in the last 7 weeks, which, by the way, no IBS, like some minor little blips, but it would take him down for 2 weeks at a time. Like, so if it took him down, it was like an hour or two. 7 weeks for his senior year's worth of work so he can walk with his peers on graduation day.
Beautiful. So these were these events that then made you, made you start to realize there's another aspect to this work.
Yes.
And that kind of leads into my next question, and which is like, what a lot of people claim to do things like what you're talking about.
Yes.
What makes your work different than other work? Perhaps more unique, perhaps more effective.
I talk about it in 3 ways, because if you think about the body of work and where it crosses over, I cross over traditional life coaches, I cross over traditional talk therapists, and traditional medical, because now I'm getting into the mind-body work. So life coaching is more of, let me talk to the conscious mind. Like, Jack, what do you want to do with your life? Oh, you want to get from here, A to B? Okay, let's talk about the steps that get you from A to B, and let me hold you accountable as you move from A to B, and we're going to do check-in. The challenge is when I was doing that is I had 2 types of clients. One who was motivated, excited about doing it, and then was stuck. Something wasn't able to get to that. So I was finding the motivated but stuck. Or I was finding the clients who were succeeding in that, whatever it was that they wanted, but then sliding back on their goal. That was the conscious, because I was only focusing on the conscious mind. Traditional talk therapists, now I want to emphasize traditional talk therapists, and there's many therapists that I know now who have integrated many different modalities, which I love, because that way, like me, you can bring in different aspects of it. So traditional talk therapists, more about still some of it's talking to the conscious mind, okay? The other part is re-traumatizing. So let me take you back to that time you were raped. Let me take you back to that trauma. Where here in the body of work I'm doing, it's getting to what's underneath, what's the subconscious, what are those traumas, triggers, and limiting beliefs without re-traumatizing people.
Right.
I could release a major negative emotion in 20 minutes without re-traumatizing. Then from a medical perspective, I look at it as if you have this major illness, like for example, I mentioned my son, IBS. What was underneath that was the stomach is associated with not only digesting food, but also the inability to digest what's going on. Right? So it's taking it from, if you have something, an ailment, a minor ache to a major ailment, I'm looking at it from what emotion, trauma, or trigger might be blocked there. And when we release the block, i.e. the trauma, the trigger, the limiting belief, the negative emotion, it helps the body to heal. And that's what inspired me here before I wrote my book, Healthy Grief, is within a 5-day period of time, I had 3 different clients who had physical healings associated with the work that I did. That was not the goal. It was, they came to me for other reasons. Ovarian cyst was one of them after releasing sadness. Another one is stage 2 colon cancer. And the other one was helping her through stage 4 pancreatic cancer. But there's others, like I've also helped release kidney stones.
So, we're running out of time.
Yes.
But I love what you're doing, because you're so thorough.
Because I show I'm passionate about it?
Well,
yeah.
you're passionate about it, but also you're describing a holistic approach to this, which a lot of people don't have, which makes you unique in that way. So there's people out there that are watching this, they're looking at you and they're thinking, I need that.
Yes.
For me, for my son, for my husband, my wife, whatever. Any parting thoughts you'd like to share with them if they're thinking about working with you?
Yes. Well, for one, what are those objectives if you're thinking about time and money? What is going to be the cost of waiting? Or even as I say with some of my clients, when it comes to health, would you rather pay for those drugs and those medications and those surgeries, or would you like to be able to process through healthfully now? And the one thing I've really learned when I've through this whole body of work, only you can create your future.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
I saw a quote recently that says you either can spend money on wellness now or spend money on illness later. Yeah. It's much better to do it now as prevention than it is as it is. So great. I love you and what you're doing, and I love your passion for it, and the fact that you have so much life experience of your own and with your clients and doing that, and you're constantly adding on, becoming aware deeper and more. And I love your grief model. Very, very powerful, because most people don't know how to deal with that. It's kind of a taboo subject in our world. So if you're watching this, I want to encourage you, if you're thinking about it, to reach out, allow her to help you, take you through these processes. So obviously, if you're someone that's dealing with grief, if someone you've lost, or a job you've lost, or an identity you've lost, or, I have friends recently lost their child, which I think is one of the worst things you have to confront in life. And if you're someone who is not just happy, you're just not happy with your life, or you're suffering, and I think it's important, this idea of somatizing. If you've got something going on in your body that's unhealthy, you can go and you can deal with all the what should I say, dealing with the symptoms. But what you really want to look at is what's causing it. And therefore, if you can remove the cause, the symptoms disappear, as they did with your son and also with other people that you've worked with as clients. So there's no reason to be struggling. There's no reason to be unhappy. You've got someone here who can help you do that. So I encourage you to do. And if you do, you'll be thanking me, I promise you.